Please, those sitting at the back, you can, come forward and fill the empty spaces in front. Ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed, may I also invite to the high table one of our lead paper presenters for today, the head cross-border cooperation and coordinator, Office of the Director General, National Boundary Commission, Abuja, Dr. Usman Farooq Jarfa. You're welcome, sir. Please, can we also put our hands together for... May I also acknowledge the presence of the head of the Department of Economics, Professor Suleiman Ahiru. You're welcome, sir. Dr. Haruna Muhammad is representing the head of Department of Educational Psychology and Counseling. You're welcome, sir. Representative of the Director, NARIC, you're welcome. And then the representative of the Vice Chancellor of Federal University of Education, Zaria, you all are welcome. Professor Ibrahim Jimo of the Department of Mass Communication, you're welcome, sir. Maled Ulando Musa, you're welcome. All other invited guests, you all are welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, with the permission of the chairman of this occasion, we move to the next item on the agenda, which is welcome address by the Director, Institute for Development Research and Training, Dr. Muhammad Kabir Salihu. Please, let's put our hands together for him while he the welcome address.
Thank you very much. The Vice Chancellor, Professor Ahmed Adam, ably represented by my mentor, the Ali Rafinda Sanusi, the keynote speaker, our father, and IDR&T Pioneer Director, and esteemed Professor of Economics, and Professor Mike Konache, the chairman of this occasion, Professor Tenimo Abubakar, directors, deans, and HOD present, our lead paper presenter, Professor Awolu Uba, who has joined us virtually, and Dr. Usman Farooq Tafa, esteemed members of the academic community, distinguished guests, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. It is with an immense sense of pride, joy, and profound gratitude that I stand before you this morning to warmly welcome you all to the first annual conference of the Institute for Development Research and Training. Today marks a historic milestone for our institute, a day we have long envisioned and diligently worked towards. The theme of this inaugural conference, Multidisciplinary Approaches to Sustainable Development in a Changing World, is not just a topic of discussion in a world facing complex, interconnected challenges, from climate crisis to economy. Is no longer sufficient. It is only by harnessing the collective wisdom of diverse fields that we can forge the innovative, resilient, and inclusive pathway to a sustainable future. This conference is a testament to our commitment to fostering this crucial dialogue. We are privileged to have gathered some of the finest minds from various disciplines, and I am confident that the exchanges over the coming hours will be both enlightening and transformative. And for us at IDR&T, today is doubly significant. we are not only launching our annual conference series, but we are also privileged to officially unveil another critical milestone of our academic mission, the maiden edition of our Journal of Development Study. For years, the establishment of a high-impact peer-reviewed journal and a world-class annual conference were two critical pillars we aim to build. They represent our twin engines able to accomplish these twin feats today. These achievements stand as a testament to the unwavering support of our and the dedication of our incredible team. As we celebrate this milestone, it is only we therefore carefully selected a keynote speaker whose vision and pioneering spirit laid the very groundwork for this institute. There is truly no other person more suited to deliver the inaugural keynote address than our pioneer director and esteemed professor of economics, Professor Mike Kwanache. Professor Kwanache, sir, our father, your legacy is the compass that has guided our journey. We are deeply honored by your contributions and his pioneering role in realizing the mission and vision upon him, the IDR&T Award of Excellence. This is a small token of our immense gratitude for a lifetime of service and inspiration. Thank you, sir. Part two, and Dr. Usman Farooq Tafa, we eagerly anticipate your insightful presentation, which will undoubtedly of course, is a powerful affirmation of our collective endeavor. To all our participants, paper present, the university just coming from the ASU warning strike. I guess that the numbers here, despite the holiday, is a testament that we can work. Let us engage deeply, challenge assumptions, and build new collaboration. And let this conference be the crucible where new ideas for sustainable world are forged. Once again, a very welcome to you all, and thank you for being a part of our history. Welcome to the IDR&T First Annual Conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director. Sir, please can we once again put our hands together for the Director. Next is the opening remarks by the Vice Chancellor of Ahmadu Bello University. Chancellor, round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you very much, MC. Mr. Chairman, sir, my father in the profession, Professor Mike Kwanache, Director, IDR, your management team, deans and professors here present, our keynote speakers, invited guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure that I welcome you this morning to this conference organized by the IDR&T with a theme that is not only timely but also intellectual actually relevant. You see, like the director earlier said, it is no longer accepted as truth that knowledge can be in silos. Treating knowledge in silos as nearly independent, standing alone in different disciplines, never really produce any practical and useful solution to our multifaceted problem. This is so true, especially in this fast changing and complex world. So the theme asking us to begin to have conversation over multidisciplinary approaches to sustainable development is intellectually engaging. We have a world today where the climate change is fast changing the way things are done. It's affecting almost every aspect of our lives. The remotest one can think of is education itself. You can find ways in which climate change is fundamentally affecting education. There's not a single sphere of our life climate change is not affected. You have the population dynamics that is so complex in trade and in investment, and you have immigration happening. The developed world has an aging population, needing young, energetic population, and the underdeveloped world has oversupply, if I may use that word, of this young, talented, and energetic population. While trade is said to be free, obeys on rules, immigration is increasingly becoming subject of regulation, ban, and stigmatization. So we live in this horribly complex and fast evolving world. No one single discipline can provide solution to our problem, be it scientific, be it social, or anything you can think of. So I appreciate your choice of a theme for this conference. And I also appreciate that you decided to bring the founder of this institute to be with us this morning. And your decision to somehow award him, recognize him, I can't thank you enough. See, I was there, young lecturer when the institute was opened, and I remember we were the foot soldiers of Prof. Prof, you remember sending us to Kaduna, myself, Ezra, Shai Audu, to represent you, technical committee. Let me tell you what Prof told me. It has made significant impact in my life, and I think I owe that to almost every favor I have gotten outside this environment, university environment. When Prof sent us he would say, you're here, you're there, representing me as experts. So participate actively in the technical discussions. When it comes to money, don't say a word, never discuss money. That is when I knew the meaning of honorarium. Prof said, when they give you, you take, you say thank you. And don't even bother counting. That philosophy remains me, takes away greed. And then it emphasizes intellectualism. You're there to contribute to the development of the society. If they so wish to appreciate you, whatever they appreciate, whatever they give you, it is an honorarium and never a payment for your service. So I never compare, since then, what I give with what I am given. And I have never counted honorarium. Whatever you give me, I put it in my glove compartment and begin to spend. Prof, I survived many places because of this philosophy. Thank you so very much. Wherever I work, my bosses never find me greedy because I never discuss money. And I think they value me for what I contribute. I get this unofficial recommendation and references, I think partly because of that. When people focus and are buried their heads, they bury their heads thinking of the money or the honorarium, I'm there burying my head, trying to contribute. I owe that this great gentleman. Thank you very much. I appreciate your bringing him back. I hope you continue to do that. The university is undergoing a lot of changes. In fact, some of these changes come so fast that I pray that we can manage them. Let me tell you, in terms of research and innovation, this administration is trying to refocus our attention from research for publication, for promotion, into research for solution to a societal problem, because that is the kind of research that leads to commercialization and leads to change in our financial whatever. That's when you get some rewards, financial rewards. What are we doing about that? We realize that it is not easy and it may be so ineffective that you keep talking to people. Maybe you have to do two things. One, incentivize them by whatever, token, recognition, whatever it is, and then build capacity in them. So the director, I saw her today, Director Research Innovation, is doing so much, planning to build capacity of our researchers on identifying the problems that can lead to innovative solutions to our societal problem. And then management is doing so much to see how we can design an incentive structure that will help build this, move this, change this direction from publishing for promotion, publishing research for solution to our problem that may lead to commercialization. ABU in the last few years, last decade or so, has done so much. We have more than 22, 23 now patents, and many in the process of registration. It was unheard of 10 years ago. We had only 1 or 2 patents, but within the last few years, 5 years or so, actually less, we've gotten more than 22. So our scientists are beginning to know, and we have built capacity to support them for patenting their innovation. This has earned Ahmadu Bello University reputation across the world. ABU is also actively seeking and cementing collaborations with universities across the world and from within. I think we have signed, I don't know, 80, 90 MOUs by now. Director Advancement should tell us, but, a lot in that area being done. These collaborations allow us to send our students to other universities that may have better facilities to do their research. And our colleagues, staff, to go and spend 2-3 months, up to 1 year in some universities. The Vice Chancellor signed one a few months ago. And I think there are 2 ongoing efforts to identify and send staff and students to universities in Malaysia and in Turkey. And in China. So, what am I saying? The university is committed to supporting any platform, any institute, any center, any faculty, any unit, any group, research group that is working towards that direction. Support very, very readily available. So, to the participants, I would encourage you to deeply engage, make the networking, and bring out solutions that can help us in addressing some of these development challenges that we have, especially that the SDG 2030 deadline is fast approaching, and we're thinking of the 2030 agenda. How do we collaborate between and within broad disciplines to deliver solutions towards sustainable development? So I welcome you this morning to Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, and I wish you a fruitful deliberation as the conference proceeds. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vice Chancellor. Sir, please can we once again put our hands together for the Vice Chancellor? You know, ladies and gentlemen, when the Vice Chancellor was talking about Professor Mike Wanashi, earlier I talked about him being a mentor to the Vice Chancellor. And it will interest you to know that Professor Mike Wanashi produced Professor Sanisa Ali Rafindadi, and Professor Sanisa Ali Rafindadi also mentored and produced Dr. Muhammad Kabir Saliu. So please, let's put our hands together for this team. Thank you very much once again, sir. And I hope with platforms like this, we will continue to promote multidisciplinary researches and provide solutions to the enormous and numerous problems bedeviling the Nigerian society. Now, at this point, I will call on the address of the chairman, at the same time also hand over the proceedings of the conference. The chairman, sir.
space it vacated in public discourse in Nigeria now. That spaces were essentially student associations, unions, and so on. And the political space is now not very suitable for them. It is important for the university to create a formal structure through which it opens up the space for engaging the public in very significant discourse. And I think one or two have taken place here. I remember last year or so, we had one important one in security. All the big people were here, including the stalwarts, and we discussed. And there were many others. By the time I leave, I will suggest one or two topics for you. Trouble-making ones. But I think it is important for this center to expand, to replace the old Center for Social and Economic Research, the old Center for Nigerian Cultural Studies, so that the humanities can contribute in the way the sciences are contributing. And the second instance, I salute them for choosing this topic, interdisciplinary approaches to sustainable development. Interdisciplinary approaches or multidisciplinary approaches, or now in the crazy vogue, transdisciplinary approaches were developed, especially from the 1980s with the third industrialization, when the world became more incorporated, when public, state, and institutional activities became blended. And it was then discovered that individual epistemology subjects could not on their own explain the complexity of the world. And there was therefore the necessity for various disciplines to come together to borrow from each other in order to deal with the complexity of the world. And the topics today illustrate this. One in public health delivery, the other one in security. So there are convergences of disciplines. And the sustainable development, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, who is an economist, mentioned some of these issues of the Millennium Goals, so many goals, and so on. So the idea of a sustainable development is also part of this new world order. The assumption that governments alone could not manage development. There is a need to open it up to other levels of society and make them suitable to those levels so that they could be sustained. All of these things are important. So that IDR has chosen this topic shows clearly that it is fully aware of the type of world in which we live. And I hope that it will continue to do so. And it has brought a person who has all that it takes to make the presentation. And when we listen to it, I'm sure we'll understand it. As I said, it will be very useful for IDEA to continue to open up space for dialogue. And you can then one on security. What about the current world we are in? The transatlantic civilization and world with its own industrialization package that has ruled the world in the last 500 years is collapsed, rapidly collapsed. And a new world order is emerging. It hasn't taken shape from Eurasia. Isn't it important for us, for example, when we look at our own destinies, to somehow discuss the world in which we are living and see what advantages there are in this kind of permutation? You can also look at the Sahel. I'm happy our teacher is here. In the 1980s, you recall, there was a lot of debate after the Darman issue about the Sahel, the borders covering the whole Western Sudan and so on and so forth, and identities. And political developments in the Sahel have also opened up these issues again in terms of relationship beyond just economics. And this may be something that perhaps at some point you may choose to deal with. Finally, one troublesome one, and that's the final thing I will say.
it may be possible for you, if you have strong skill, to maybe create a big dialogue with very strong stakeholders on Nigerian politics. Those who follow Nigerian politics carefully and know it will notice that there is one troublesome side to it. It goes, it seems to me, through a cycle. 1952, 1954 crisis, the 83 crisis, and so on and so forth. We've had political groupings that begin, expand, and then when they become very strong, you come to the winner-takes-all situation. And if you read the history of Nigerian republics, all of them have collapsed at that point. Currently, there are, how many governors are left who are not in office? How many senators? So they may win the election, but after it, why do we have a political system that does not seem to have the capacity for growth, in which you have this vicious cycle and so on and so forth? Can't we have a dialogue on our political situation? Is it a crime? So if you can, there are many other topics, security and so on. I hope that you'll be able to do so and that your center will grow. If you do it, it will be to the glory of the first director, who is your speaker today, who is our teacher. As I said, I am part of the Kwanashi epistemic genealogy as well. Thank you very much. Well, it is. Well, it is my honor to invite. Okay, so before I invite the speaker, so the keynote speaker, Professor Konashi, I'll call on the MC to get the citation presented. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Protocol says whenever citations are read, the person whose citation is being read stands, but I can't ask the teacher of the Vice Chancellor to stand, sir. I think for that, we'll break the protocol today. Thank you, sir. Citation of Professor Mike Konashi, former Vice Chancellor, Veritas University, Abuja, pioneer Director, Institute for Development Research and Training, IDR&T, Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor to present to you a scholar of profound intellect, an economist of global repute, and a distinguished administrator, Professor Mike Konashi, the pioneer director of the Institute for Development Research and Training, IDR&T, Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. Professor Konashi obtained his bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees in economics from Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, where he began a brilliant academic career that has spanned decades of scholarship, mentorship, and public service. He has served in several distinguished capacities, including Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences, and Coordinator of the Central Bank of Nigeria Chair in Macroeconomic Modeling, where he advanced Nigeria's research capacity in monetary and fiscal policy design. As the pioneer director of IDR&T, Professor Konashi laid the intellectual and institutional foundations for the Institute's role as a hub for multidisciplinary research, policy innovation, and community development. His foresight and leadership continue to shape the Institute's vision and relevance in addressing contemporary development challenges. Former Vice Chancellor of Veritas University, Abuja, Professor Konashi is a prolific author, an inspiring teacher, and a mentor to many scholars and policy leaders across Nigeria and beyond. His research interests span macroeconomic policy, development planning, and institutional transformation. Today, we are privileged to have him return home to the very institute he helped establish to deliver the keynote address on the theme, Multidisciplinary Approaches to Sustainable Development in a Changing World. distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in honoring an academic statesman, a pioneer visionary, and a lifelong advocate of knowledge for development, Professor Mike Oneshi.
Yeah, right. Maybe you should make it.
As Tamino will tell you, in those days, but that was not, will not tolerate this type of. Let me just extend courtesies that have already been extended and just proceed. As an old teacher, time is of the essence. Try to keep exactly to the time specified, so we don't get into rabble-rousing and argumentation about what the topic is all about. Well, after I send it to courtesy, let me begin by thanking the director of the institute and the staff for inviting me to this occasion. I actually did not know that than just coming to lead this conversation was on the board. But when I got the invitation, something in me just said, yes, you have to go back, sit down and listen to how the institute is going. As you're growing, one thing you notice is that you appreciate what is that you are part of. There's a level at which you have this appreciation for how institutions are growing, how individuals are growing, and how society is growing. It's always a sign of, well, it might be just progress, but it's still progress. So I thank the director for inviting me, and also for, it's important to go back to the origin of the institute itself. I think as Tanimu said, the institute was supposed to sort of bring together the Center for Social and Economic Research and the Cultural Research. Those of you who know ABU, there was a time there was a radical engineering of the university from what it was, to try to situate research in a more, growing context. But the point then was for research to actually do what we are now asking research to do, to target outcomes and society and human beings, not exoteric, venture that Western intellectualism seems to have imposed on us. The way we teach, the way we carry ourselves as intellectuals was part of a global structure of teaching and learning that really did not, I don't think, took cognizance of the reality of our own existence. So the university restructured its research architecture, its research system. An idea was established. And one of the things about once I make this statement, I always want to recognize the director of CISA. The first director was actually the registrar of the university, Lobster. Just to show you how, right at that point, the beginning, the founders of the university recognized that it's not just teaching, but that the university located in this part of the country must engage in research. While they were looking at people to head it, the registrar of the university, I think a British, I can't even remember his nationality, became the first director, and he was charged with getting CISA off the ground. And at that point, projecting it within a national platform that will, in a way, dig into the socio-economic and political dynamics of its immediate location. That is looking at the northern states and looking at the components and diving into the dynamics. Well, the university was restructured, and at that point they felt, I don't know what informed the restructuring, apart from the fact that you are trying to re-engineer the university to be more proactive and to be more active in trying to interrogate the realities of our time. And that was how IDR came into play. The initial phase of IDR, we maintained the philosophy of social development, political development, economic development. It was trying to bring all those areas together in an institute to try to see how we can interrogate the realities of communities and societies in this part of the country, and how we could engage that process in trying to make a simple production contribution to that process. I'm happy that the conference and publication is again being recognized as a critical instrument of attaining the objective of the center. The first conference that IDR had was in 2002, and the proceedings was published by IDR in 2003. And that conference was politics and political power relations in Nigeria. That was the title of that conference. Even the way the thing is structured, you know the sort of debate that was going on. But at that point, it was political power relations that seemed to have dominated the conversation, in the country then. And that conference was held. It was very successful in this university, and the proceedings, were published. That was the first publication that IDR had in 2003, as far back as that. So you can imagine my excitement for this present initiative. And what he says is that, don't worry, just become eventually, the initial commitment of the founders of the institute will be realized as a new generation emerges, and how, as they interpret the reality, of our time. So again, I thank the director, I thank the institute for keeping the flag flying, and particularly, Daniel has given you a number of topics. Let me just add that one of your primary function is to look at our immediate environment. We talked about the global crisis, but there's also a crisis in Nigeria. We don't know whether this country can stand the pressure that the Nigerian aristocrats are putting on our social and political structure. And we survive as a nation. Are we going to survive by just collaboration of the elite who decide to conspire to keep the country as underdeveloped as it has been? Or are we going to encourage some form of rethinking of our social and political system, mobilizing our students, mobilizing our population to have their voice heard in policy making in this country, and to be able to challenge the hegemony? I don't want to use those. There are some ones we don't use anymore, because the younger ones we get upset. We try to remove those words even when we make this presentation. But yes, the idea must come back to be mobilizers, of the youth and our students, to appreciate that you have to fight for a Nigerian if you want Nigeria. Intellectually struggle for it, fight for it, and empower the youth, the next generation, because the way these Gen Z people are going, well, we just keep on praying to God. The topic is very apt, and let's for the next 30 minutes delve into it, just to provide a platform in which I know subsequent speakers will now pick up. And it says multidisciplinary approaches to sustainable development in a changing world. Okay? The approaches, 1, sustainable development, what it is, 2, and a changing world, 3. And my presentation then said, no, you have to bring it down, not just a changing world, but a changing Nigeria. But a country that is right now, I don't know whether we are standing on solid or we are just wobbling. And this country, we have to pray for it. And it says, how do you then look at these 3 distinct issues? Sustainable development has emerged as a defining global challenge of the 21st century, necessitating integrated responses that encompass diverse disciplines, sectors, and social levels, and societal levels. It has become one of the biggest challenges of our time, as contradictions that have resulted from the neglect reverberates around the world. For me, the starting point, and when you look at the list of disciplines we normally refer to, the literature will hardly mention humanity, especially history. And that's one point I would want to add to the institute. If you don't learn from history, if you have absolutely no sensitivity to conditions within our culture, within our society, and our understanding of where we think we should be going. So I begin with the first global concept that is dear to me, and that is the hegemony of Western capital. The hegemony and the outcome of global governance that has been dominated by Western powers, with Western ideologies, with Western education, that has resulted in the consistent marginalization of the African people. Consistent marginalization of a very large part of the world. And again, when I bring it out to my context, I look at the Nigerian situation and I find the same process playing out. The marginalization of the Nigerian people by an oligarchy that thinks it is their birthright to continue to expropriate national wealth, just as Western capital has over the century pretended that it's their right to continue to exploit third world countries, define an international division of labor that relegates third world countries to the periphery of existence. They come in here, they take our resources, they dig our mines, go to Jos and look at what has happened to the tin mine, go to the coal mines, see what is happening in Zamfara now, that is suddenly discovered that Zamfara is sitting on a pot of gold. See how they are disrupting social relations. See how they are disrupting our society. See how they are looting and burning on the basis of a global model that is completely irrelevant to us. Western capitalism is evil within the context of our own existence because it only goes to exploit, to enrich the rich, and to make the poor poorer. Let's leave Western markets and people say, no trouble, no trouble. No trouble. If you look at the world system, the collapse of the multipolar world with the demise of the Soviet Union created a global environment that we are all suffering under. The emergence of a unipolar world and the dominance of the marketplace points to the fact that all of us must be ruled by the market. no matter how ridiculous the outcome of the market is, our intellectual inclination, orthodox economics, blinds our eyes to the reality of the. We are all homos economicus, which is not correct, and we teach our students that. Everything is ceteris paribus, which is wrong. Ceteris is never paribus. But the collapse of we are not talking of, what the changes are. The collapse of the world system and the emergence of global capital after the emergence of the unipolar war, then meant that those who controlled capital became the king all over the world. It's what capital wants, that's what capital gets. It's the pittance that is left after capital has taken what it wants, it's what you get. Unfortunately, the greed of capitalism, the crass greed of capitalism have made it almost impossible for those who don't own capital to survive. That is why the level of poverty in the world is as high as it is today. And that's why the poverty in this country, despite the fact that we have a lot of resources, despite the fact we are resource rich, despite the fact that we have the labor, despite the fact that we have the space, we still account for the largest pool of poor people in the world. How do I account for that? A resource-rich country like Nigeria, how do I account to the fact that our people remain absolutely poor? Western model of development has proven unable to address the massive poverty that the world is witnessing. Idea, let me again caution you. You begin to interrogate the Western model of development. Interrogate the economists. Professor Sanusi, let him tell you why we should always support the greed of the capitalists. Why? Optimization. Without being able to look at the externalities. Markets do fail, Unfortunately for most of us, the markets are failing. And our people are getting poorer and poorer for the failure of markets. So we cannot just rely on the economists who have this, nor can we rely only on scientists, nor can we rely on political scientists, nor sociologists, nor science and technology. They all have little parts to play. We need some thought process that will harmonize all, and that is the essence of this presentation today. Try to make the distinction between development, as the economics know it, and sustainable development, that the economists find it very, very difficult to understand. How will a center, you're an economist, so please don't push this economic language in that center and think that sustainable development is development. It's not. You write this your historic equations, this data. You are dealing with human. Every point in that your graph is a human being. It's not a number. And you run these models, go to computer, they give you results. We must be socially conscious. We must promote justice, and we must be ethical in what we do. I've never been a friend to a greedy man. And for God's sake, don't be a friend to a greedy man. Because even if it's one kobo that is left in your pocket, he will take it. Because he wants more and more and more. And even if he's going to take the last kobo you have to add to his own, he will take that last kobo and add it to his own. So we must all uphold the greed of capitalism. And all those countries that promote the world order that tells us that the primacy of life is should be told that we might not all agree. Now let's come to the Bertrand report established the grounds for sustainable development, and they defined it. I think globally, most researchers take that conversation, as given. That report, looking at the historical development of society, the mass disparity in global wealth, the crisis of production. I think about mentioning this whole idea of the economy going today, coming down tomorrow, and all those crises, episode, the bouts of crisis, was beginning to at least disturb men of conscience, who thought that the way you organize global society must be on the basis of justice, ethics, and fair play. Unfortunately, these are phrases that economists find difficult. Economists will tell you, give me the coefficient. So if you can't give them that coefficient, they're in trouble. Because they want to run a regression. But the report understood that there was something fundamentally wrong, with. By the way, I'm an economist. HOD, please, where's HOD? Please don't kick me out of the department. It's just that dumb, you economists are so arrogant at this analysis, right? Once in a while, we should tell ourselves the truth. So we're starting from the Brundtland report, because it's normally the start of this issue. He set up a framework, and basically what he says is that we develop in such a way that we don't undermine the development of the next generation. It's not short-run dynamics. It's not short-run equilibrium. That's not what I'm talking about. It is intergenerational discourse. What are you consuming now? And what is the impact of what you are consuming now on your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren? So your mindset is a more, in terms of time, it's a more encompassing one. It is not maximization today. That's not it. It's not GDP increasing at a phenomenal rate today. No, that is not it. It is what is the impact of that GDP on your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren. It's an intergenerational concern. I see, again, I'm sitting in a way, because if you look at the analysis of the pre-Brundtland report era, what did you see? We have just come out of the let's go back to the first, not the first crisis, the post-World War crisis. And after that, the reconstruction of the global economy then was spearheaded by just one or two countries. That's why we had the British institutions, we had the WTO, and we had basically those three institutions sitting down and deciding that this is the way the world will work. And for a while, they were able to stabilize the global environment. They were able to grow, but if you look at the literature, they were growing, but the third world countries were not growing because of the role the third world countries played within that architecture. If they wanted to grow, they gave them debt. And for them to service the debt, they have to make their people poorer. And with this logic of dependence and the entrenchment of marginalization and poverty. So for me, the point is to first interrogate the global architecture. That is how we begin. From that report, okay, a number of things that happened. In the late 1992 precisely, we had the Earth Summit, and it provided Agenda 21. And at that point, we were formalizing a comprehensive global strategy for sustainable development. And that strategy has 3 pillars. It was social, economic, and environmental. Yes, and environmental. Then we progressed to the Millennium Development Goals that were adopted in 2000. And that set specific targets, such as having to halve extreme poverty and improve global health and education. That became the source of the groundwork for benchmarking. Building upon this initiative, we had the 2012 Rio Plus Conference, Plus 20 Conference, that adopted the 2013 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which introduced the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. And that was supposed to be a universal framework comprising 17 goals, 169 targets, that is general, it's generalized to everybody, it's not specific. Those are just global targets and global principles. How do you attain it? There's report of compliance. You get this UN report on compliance of the SDG, and as I think the VC said, what we are getting is that very few countries will ever meet that target. And the third world countries have absolutely no opportunity to meet the targets. And again, as an intellectual, I think the question is why? That is the first question that comes to my mind. Why? You are saying that we can't meet the targets, and you are not going back to interrogate why we can't meet the target. And that's why I say the historians are very important. The political sciences are very important. They have to explain to us power relations, power dynamics, to say, look, you can do this, you can run these things, but as long as you don't have social transformation, as long as you don't have political transformation, you are not going to get the target. There is a sort of discussion that is very, very, very important. It's not just looking at the targets and saying, in this one you have reached this point, in that. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to look at society and look at the various aspects of society. Unlike the MDGs, which primary focus was social development in developing countries, the SDGs adopted an inclusive approach that recognizes the complex interrelationship among social, environmental, and economic systems. So when you do the individual silo system dynamics analysis, you do it within that silo. So the SDG, their principle is that you can't do that. That you must do it within an integrated framework that takes into account those 3 pillars. SDG explicit issue on, for example, climate change, that's SDG 13. Sustainable consumption, SDG 12. Governance, SDG 16. And partnership, that means that the world as a whole will partner to get to the SDGs. It's not just an individual country that if you don't have that partnership, you go to SDG 17. You can take all the SDGs as I don't have time to take all of them to show you how they interrelate. But just to pick up these ones and you see how they relate. But SDG then integrated into a system-based action plan. That is the key phrase. It integrated them. MDG did not do that. So I'm basically saying that, yes, we have to go back to SDG and see the intention, of those who prepared it. But again, for me, I keep on going back to the historical context. Climate change. Prof mentioned the climate change. And you look at, I'll just take that as an example. Look at the issue of climate change. When that convention and the agreement was signed, the impression was given that every country must participate in it. And even a financing plan was developed. But what the Western power did not tell everybody is that they were the ones who contributed to the depletion of ozone layer more than even the developing countries. Now, if you go through the experience of the climate change debate, the Western world has been very, very reluctant to cutting emission. Actually, when Trump came in for the first time, what did he do? He removed America from that convention. He said, we are no longer interested. Why? Why are you not interested? Because you discovered that the technological change that is required to reduce your emission pollution was not within reach. So you still wanted to be polluting and polluting and polluting. But when you go to third world countries, you are willing to twist their arm and say, no, you are not meeting your target. They are not meeting their target. So they extend that the United States under this guy, Trump, got out of the agreement. Biden, now Trump is back again, and he said, you know what? Whether I'm there or not, it doesn't matter. I'll just do what I want to do. The pipelines are coming up, the gas lines are going up, because he said, look, that technology will lead us to greater improvement in our economy. What is this whole thing about climate? That example is very important for me, because it just shows the lack of faith that the West, that cannot deny that they are responsible for the depletion of ozone layer by the gas they are emitting, but will clamp down on third world countries that are still using those technologies. That's when the ones they can climb out of. Because if you look at the report, one of the greatest polluters is China. And today nobody can stop China. They're still burning their coal. They say, look, if you want to deal with us, you have to accept it. Oh, America says, oh, you will be burning coal, nobody, we are going to burn coal. But I don't think to China. China is even going to third world countries to set up mines. So that they are part of, they are just saying, yes, we can do these conventions. They're not even funding the thing. The point I'm making is that when we read this thing, we shouldn't just think that everything is in good faith. There's always that underlying story that you must learn. Are we strong enough to confront some of these observations? No, we are not. We are not, because our leaders are just one step away from the imperialists. They are just hand tools, of these guys. They can go to any of our countries, tell us to do it. Look again, let's go to the Zamfara incident. People are being killed, people are digging go there anywhere they want to do. They are landing, they are picking the thing out. And yes, we have a state. We are supposed to have a state that is supposed to monitor, control the goings on in that place. Where is the state? Where is the state? Let's go to our next concern, and which is just very briefly, and I think that the point has already been mentioned and alluded. The crisis, at the end of this thing, changing world. I think the director is being psychedelic here. He didn't want to use crisis. It's not a change. The changing world for us now is the crisis of Western development model. It's a crisis of capitalist development going rogue worldwide. That is the changing world. And we should recognize it as it is. Then we can talk about what are the elements of the crisis, the realignment that is going on globally now, the emergence of new superpowers or new powers, the movement from the unipolar world that came after the collapse of the multilateral global system, with the collapse of the Soviet Union, the emergence of a new world order with the BRICS coming up, with China coming up. What is the implication of this emergence to the stability of the global order? Or how do we respond? What is the response of the dominant powers to this emergence of a new configuration? And then we turn around, how is it impacting on the ability to achieve the SDGs? Again, the obvious and right one I've already mentioned, the fact that the United States now, they're not saying, look, this is your climate change thing, I beg, forget it. We are not interested. Because you can't tell us to stop burning coal or digging, mining petroleum. You can't tell us to do that. So that is that about that crisis. We will try, and I'm sure maybe later on other speakers will delve into that crisis. Because that crisis that provided the context in which SDGs can be. The next thing is, let's look at the insights, the multidisciplinary insight, because that's the first part of the topic. The director recognizes that disciplines in silos are no longer making it, because disciplines in silos have their own target. The epistemology behind it is quite defined. And that when you move from one silo to the other, you begin to find some disconnect. So unless you are going to disaggregate sustainable development into those silos, and some of the researchers I'm seeing now that have done that, you see the economics trying to work on sustainable development. And all the proxies they are using is the old model. It's just at the end, instead of growth, because growth is being discredited, you just put the word sustainable development. My brother, you're not doing sustainable development. When you run those equations, you're not doing sustainable development. And as the point I made, the epistemology behind all those disciplines and the way they perceive good and right and the way they configure the logic of the system will differ. You need a discipline, which is social, which is sustainable development, that brings them together, that tries to harmonize them and see whether there's common ground and how in this system we are going to operate, we incorporate the main elements of each of these, because the disciplines themselves have their own strong point. And the targets and the impact on other aspects, of the system. You can't talk of economic growth in Nigeria without alluding to power dynamics. But yet, as economists, we do that a lot. Ceteris paribus. Once we go ahead and do it like that, everybody will keep quiet. But how can you talk of development in Nigeria without recognizing the social context, the ethical context, the moral issues, the culture? How can you keep all those constant? They're never constant. So let us identify, again, I said I've added, but what I didn't find out a lot in the literature is this whole idea of humanities, philosophy, ethics, morality, history. But basically, it's environmental science. Between environmental science and economic science, we are pushing each other on this sustainable issue. Because the definition seems to link both of them. Economics have been told, yes, develop today, grow today, but do not destroy the environment so that the future generation will have nothing to hang on. That is it. They are just saying, internalize that to your analysis, just bring it in. And remember that when you destroy the world today because you want to maximize your wealth today, grow fast today, you can grow fast today. Your child is going to grow big because you have consumed everything today. But because you are greedy, you don't care. They will look after themselves. If you're in a position, you steal as much money as you can steal, so that when they come, they'll go and be taking that money and surviving. Again, I hope you get the presentation. You see all the SDGs that each of these groups cover: environmental science, and what precisely they do. SDG 12, SDG 7, SDG 11. And they bring all those things together. They have their own theory, they have the way of explaining the context of these SDGs. But again, I keep on referring you that the SDG itself is a logical system. It is not atomized. It's not in silos. It's an integrated system. So all these SDGs you are saying, ultimately, must all work together, not anyone. So that economics, oh my dear discipline, God bless you. Every economics here, amen. God bless economics. Okay. We are the king, we are the center. When we talk of development, if you are talking of human development, if you are talking of whatever development, society, you can end up back to the material base. That's where you end up. You can go to the moon and come back. If that going to the moon does not add food on our table here on earth, you buy actually remain there. Whatever you do, it must manifest in food on our table. So economics are the core. And, well, again, we don't want to blow our trumpet, but we have done a lot when it comes to supporting SDGs. We have provided clarity. We have built models that will enable us to even internalize. It's not true that economics cannot take into account environmental factors. We can take into account environmental factors. My problem with it that it's an assumption. Series, and that's it. We don't have a way of internalizing the reality, the feelings, the dynamics, the human cost to environmental issues. So for us, SDG 12, 1, 2, we're all in there. Sociology. The sociologists have a lot to do with the social capital. They have a lot to do with how individual human behavior evolves or develops, what the social drivers are, what the cultural norms are, what the social structure, what it is, and how it impacts on the relevance of our life. The next one is political science. These are the power people. You can't do any of this analysis without political scientists, because power relations determine where your policy go and how the impact it will have, on society. The political scientist explores international relations, analyzing how global agreements and cooperations, such as the Paris Agreement, the one we have already we talked about, are negotiated, ratified, and enforced. So it's very important. It's not just saying that we have the Paris Agreement. The political scientists tend to look at the power play behind that agreement and explain to us how the power dynamics, geopolitical conflicts, and resource disputes impact on the whole concept of sustainable development. The last that you always find in the is science, technology, and innovation. And this is a very paramount to sustainable development because they serve as catalysts, facilitating sustainable outcomes by enhancing efficiency, reducing resource use, and enabling new service delivery modalities. So it's always important, as we talk of the social development theme, that we recognize the importance, of science and technology. Now, very briefly, my next point of interest is the philosophical and theoretical basis for sustainable development. What is the philosophy behind it? What is the theoretical basis for sustainable development? At its core, sustainable development is about justice and moral responsibility. I will read that again. At its core, sustainable development is about justice and moral responsibility. It's very important. The principle outlined in the SDGs emphasize that we have the duty to manage our planet's resources wisely, not just for ourselves, but also for future generations. That's the philosophy behind it. This idea stems from the famous definition of sustainable development in the report we've already cited, that sustainable development is a development that meets the need of the present without compromising the ability of the future generation to meet their own needs. That is the thinking behind articulating this program. The methodology or the theoretical framework is built around three pillars. We've already alluded to that before. The social pillar that focuses on human well-being, equity, and peace. For development of the sustainable, include everybody. It must be inclusive. And by the way, economics have this way of saying inclusive development. Inclusive development is not sustainable development. And when you say you want to include everybody, we will normally make that statement within context. Not everybody that can be included. There are some people who, by the logic of the system, are already abandoned. You can't go to the market when you have no penny in your pocket. You are excluded. You say you are hungry, you want to go to the market. There is no kobo in your pocket. My friend, don't go there. You are already excluded. So the social pillar does that. The environmental pillar focuses mainly on protecting our planet and our planet's natural system. Their job is just to safeguard our natural system, that it will not collapse. Because we keep on overusing the earth, and they are afraid that one day the earth itself will not survive. Why? Because we are greedy. If we can dig out all the gold in Zaria in 1 week, Nigerians will go and dig them out. If all the oil, they say we have oil in the Chad Basin, we have oil coming down. If we can dig them up, believe you, Nigerians will go and dig up in 1 week. And take the money and do what? And put it in their pocket. That is not the strategy of sustainable development. Don't do that. Just because there's oil in the night, you go there and you dig everything, put it in your pocket, and you go away. Sustainable development is not done that way. It says, look, I know this thing is here. I will take enough just to transform society today, because I know tomorrow my children will come and fetch from the same well. And I want it to be there that their great grandchildren will come and Fetch from the same well. Not that I will empty everything. Greed of capitalism, greed of the market. And you don't care what happens to the future generation. So we've already talked about what are the challenges of multidisciplinary approach to these issues? What's actually the challenge? Why are we even discussing? What is the challenge? One of the biggest challenges. Where did I start? Challenges. Where did I start? I'm told I've talked only 40 minutes. Okay. Since you don't know. Around the table, they might not have degrees. They might not even have gone to school. You have to put them in the table and go through that whole process again and be sure that there's a buy-in from them. That's actually where we are going. Ultimately, all this thing, all this your seminar, all this your conference, that's where we are going. We are going to reach a place where we say, okay, look, IDR is going to focus on this issue. Get all the intellectual, you do your own, but it can't stop there unless you actually bring the stakeholders and sit with them, listen to them, internalize what they are saying, get their buy-in into it. Your methodology is still not complete. Bring the students in, bring Tanimu to sit at the back and be teaching them. So again, let us very, very quickly, what are the challenges? What will you face when you try to? The first thing is what you have already said before, that the disciplines, the way they exist now, exist in silos. Okay, so you bring the economics, you bring political science, they're looking at each other, and they all think that my worldview is actually the most important, and it's not. People who have done this, it's very, very difficult to break that barrier. It's easy to say we'll invite them, but it's a challenge to multidisciplinary because these silos are almost cast in concrete walls. And you must begin to learn how to break out of it. Sustainable development requires a new way of thinking, a completely new way of thinking. So for you, like that, you have to sit yourself and say, what is the new way we should be thinking? We are going to get all these professionals together. What is our new way of thinking? We must lead them to abandon some of their long-standing stereotype and embed a new way of thinking. The new way of thinking should involve a way of thinking that encourages cooperation across fields. We want to know the differences, we know the differences of perception, but there must be a way of getting them to cooperate. Because ultimately, it is the end product, it is impact at the end that you are interested in. So the first thing is cooperative. Combining insights from economics, that of environmental science, that of political science, that of sociology, by combining them in a systematic fashion to make sure there are no contradictions, in the thought process. It enables you to articulate and to project policies that are inclusive. Again, the difficulty, what difficulty are we, why is that? It's difficult because practically collaboration is always limited by institutional barriers. There are institutions, because these institutions are already themselves. If a PhD student in economics comes, he wants to write a thesis on sustainable development in a particular area, and then he starts telling you psychology, his language is psychology, his language is political science. The professor stands and just say, oh, wait, my friend, hold on. Wait, all this thing you are talking, where? No. He said, no, this is sustainable development. This is multidisciplinary. It's my voice, I will just laugh. Oh, yeah, go ahead now. Oh, yeah. Go and do their language and bring it back. By the time he comes back to him as a PhD supervisor, what they'll be looking for is dydx and coefficient of regression and how you test for collinearity. That's what they'll be looking for. Are they blending all these other parts to make the system, consistent and coherent, that you have taken into account all these other areas? That's one of the challenges of multidisciplinary. We can talk about it, but we will actually go field to the when that with the PhD wants to work, and it's actually, they say, what is all this coefficient of this? What is this multicollinearity? I beg, go to professor of economics to sort that one out. No, so what I did, we have to then develop a system that is acceptable to most of the component units, that they can solve the problem. Again, it's said that I'm happy to go to this problem solving type of research. It's not esoteric. What problem are they solving? And the student is telling you, see, in this local government I'm studying, this is their behavior. And the economist said that is not rational behavior. Oh my God. Because the economist has his own definition of what they call rational behavior. He said, my friend, this is not rational behavior. The man is saying, I'm coming from a local government. This is the way they behave. They go and tell them that they are not behaving rationally. Tell your supervisor to go and tell them, not you. Let him go and tell them. So that's some of the challenges we have in this multidisciplinary. Again, what point are we making? That we have to focus on the culture of collaboration. That all of us sitting around the table must accept the importance and the need of collaboration, accepting and respecting the other people's thought process. Okay, now, multidisciplinary strategies and sectoral integration. For Nigeria, basically, what you see the literature will always recommend is that we look at our strong points, the areas we think we can, and then see how we incorporate other elements in it. For example, we go to climate-sensitive agriculture. Yeah. You see, I have talked to a number of, I'm not an agriculturalist, but I've talked to people who are knowledgeable agriculturalists, and they tell us that these imported seeds that we now sell around, and the outcome and the output. I'm already told them that I'm finished. Improved seeds. And some of them have said, you know what? They're just killing agriculture. It's true that they produce, the yield is more, the timing is shorter. So you're not rational if you don't take that. What's you? The seed is improved seed. The time frame is short. So before you know it, you turn over. But then they said the man must go back to the seed seller every time he wants to plant. So there's somebody sitting over there just watching you. The day he decides that you are not him enough and he's not going to send you that seed, what happens to your agriculture? The economists will say, go for that one. Go for that one. Somebody who's looking at sustainable development will say, just take it easy. Let's research our own rate. Let's see how we can improve it. Let's see how it might not be as the efficiency might not be as high as them. They don't need as much fertilizer as we are using. But at least we know that this farm I can leave it for my children. It will still be yielding. They don't have to go abroad to buy seeds. They can take seeds from the farm and they will plant. And the generation after that will do that. And the generation after that will do that. That's sustainability. Not killing your agriculture because you want to make profit today. Not doing that. Again, you have to sit down the table, you have to look at all this, and you have to say, look, okay, let's get technologies to come. Let's get the farmers themselves. Let's sit at the table and see, how effective it is. We have to decentralize renewable energy. There's a lot of literature on that. Urban planning and public health, and then the circular economy. We have to look at, how we promote that in Nigeria. But one thing I will say about the Nigerian situation is that it's not as bad as it is. In the area of technology hub somewhere in Lagos, as imagine, I've been able to actually imbibe technology. And Nigerians are now famous for building apps, building technologies, what are people doing? All those things. But what we need to is to be able to integrate it within the other context, other sectors. Sustainable development, Mr. Chairman, is critical. We can't continue the way we are going in silos. Articulating policies that are not consistent with that. Environmental policy and economic policy going in two different directions. They have their own epistemological background, they have their own targets, they know the knowledge they want to propose, they go in that direction. Political scientists doing the same thing. They go to sleep until the election is coming. No. Election should be every day. It's not once in 4 years. Election should be every day. What does that mean? That the people hold accountable the people they elect on a daily basis. There is a platform in which you discuss the progress. And everybody, the engineer should be there to tell you that this policy is not right. This road you have been building, there are roads that we have been building for 30 years in Nigeria we have not completed. And every year we put money in the budget. 30 years of building one road? How is that sustainable development? But if you are using an integrative, somebody will tell you, the economists will tell you, or the political or the sociologists, this shows that you have never happened. Many people are dying when you go from kilometer this to kilometer that. People are dying. Try to come, those of you who travel, you know that the trains are not.
The chairman of the occasion, our distinguished guest, and our mentor, Mike Wanashi, the DVC Advancement Society, and profound joy that I stand before you today to unveil the maiden edition of our journal. That the idea of establishing it were as this unveiling marks a significant milestone towards fostering scholarly excellence, innovation, and commitment despite the various challenges is take off in the 1990s. This maiden edition is a testament to the dedication and hard work. Edition, I want to express my sincere gratitude to all who have supported and believed in this endeavor. I encourage all of us to embrace the spirit of curiosity, rigor, and integrity as we continue to build a vibrant academic community Ahmadu Bello University is known for. Thank you for celebrating this occasion with us. We look forward to a future. We look forward to a future filled with inspiring breakthroughs and meaningful contribution. Thank you. Now, it is my honor and pleasure to of Development Stories #1, Volume 1, to the glory of God.
Well, thank you. Okay, so can you the editorial board, members of the editorial board. Members of the editorial board come and build the
Professor Jimo.
Can have the photograph. Yes. And build. Google image. Okay, I'm ready. I forgot to.
Ajun, are you not part of the team?
All right. So, these are the conspirators.
Sorry, the chairman, sir, before we move on, we have SMP, Professor Raymond Bako, who is here ably represented by Professor. The representative of the Director, National Agricultural Extension Services, NARLS, Dr. Babad Ahiru, you're welcome. And we also have the Director, Institute of Education, Professor Abubakar Jumari, is here ably represented by Dr. Babar Ilwanu. You're welcome, sir. And then also a former Director of the Institute for Development Research and Training, Professor Binta Abdul Karim. You're welcome, ma'am. The Head of Department of Political Science and International Studies, Dr. Emel Tafida. You're welcome, sir. And the representative of the Director General, NARIC. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much, Chairman, sir.
Thank you very much. So with this, I'm going to bring this session close, briefly, tea break. There is a tea break, photograph, then we return to the second session in which the late papers will be taken. Two late papers. So just a brief, don't disappear. Thank you very much. Yeah. For tea break, I will come with this.